sent out an email saying no?
Yes, but we talked about it Wednesday.
Is it because it was a speaker?
No, basically,
There's no Hebrew
there's no
school.
Hebrew school.
It's what?
No Hebrew school.
Somebody else made up the count. There's no Hebrew school, so we assumed there was an acquired.
I see.
Teachers convention, right? Everybody was a teacher
Yeah,
convention.
well, I get that, there's no school today, but I didn't know what happened to us.
Religious school teachers also.
I didn't see a thing.
I don't know that he sent us something saying that there was.
It's on the live on Friday. I was looking forward to actually not. Oh, in the morning? Okay, fine. We're gonna have 12 people here tonight. We're gonna come here to get like rest.
Telling you.
Everyone says, oh, I love the choir so much. Here are they. What? It's early yet. Please. Was it drizzling outside?
It's torrentially drizzly.
Certainly isn't much. We've sung in snowstorms.
Right.
mafana, toda, esmira nariano, lekal mafana, toda, esmira nariano, lepuneran enna, sada nario, let's all ye shame him, let's all ye shame him.
Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai. Oh, David Chai. Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai. Oh, David Chai. Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael Chai, Amen, 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 Yisrael
It's been quite a couple of weeks. For those of us who have been following elections both in the United States and in Israel, we may be having different types of uncertainty and different types of fears about the present and the future, many of which remain unresolved. I've never experienced an election in which I can so confidently say that people all across the political spectrum are likely feeling a combination of joy and disappointment. And also, we don't know what happened in the end yet, and we're faced with the reality that sometimes our lives are uncertain, and sometimes things that we hoped would be clear aren't, and I'm not just talking about politics. I'm sure all of us have things in our lives that are that way. And we feel all sorts of feelings. Elections bring up all sorts of feelings about our present, our future, our hopes for our children, for generations to come, our hopes for ourselves in time to come. But now, it's Shabbat. And now's our time to find, at least for a moment, peace with our past and to set aside, at least for a moment, our fears for the future. And so it's a joy to be celebrating Shabbat together and to be here in our cathedral in time that Shabbat provides us.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is Ina Horn, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Anshe Emeth Memorial Temple. Whether you're joining us virtually or are present here in the sanctuary, it's wonderful to gather together as one community. Daylight savings time has ended, and it gets dark so early now. We all know how much light affects the way we feel. So tonight, as it gets darker outside, let us bring the light of Shabbat into our hearts with our singing and with our spirit. And we'll begin that now as we invite Laura Gordon up to the bima to light the Shabbat candles and lead us in the blessings that may be found on pages 2 and 3 in your prayer books. Shabbat Shalom.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Inlet you with Lachado D on page 20.
Shine. Shabbat, Pene Shabbat nekabela. Ay, 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 lecha dodi. Ay, 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 likrat kala. Ay, 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 pene Shabbat nekabela.
Ayu lebshisa sho sai ikra hakul ko bevalayik ayash elo hayik kimso satan akala.
Ay, 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 lecha dodi. Ay, 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 likrat kala. Ay, 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 pene Shabbat nekabela.
ימינו שמאלתי פרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי אל יריש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה.
Ay, 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 lecha dodi. Ay, 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 likrat kala. Ay, 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 pene Shabbat nekabela. Boi ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. פני שבת נקבלה, איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת כלה, איי 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 פני שבת נקבלה.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We continue with Katsi Kaddish on page 26.
יתקדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן.
Please rise.
La la la
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv haravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, ובתבונה משנה עיתים ומחליף את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, פרט ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת. אדוני אלוהינו, בשלבנו ובקומנו, בשלבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בזכותך, ונשמח דברי תורתך, ונשמח במצוותיך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי אם חיינו חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגד יומם ולילה.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני. אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed, Shema Israel, Adonai Echad, Shema, Shema Israel, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם כראשים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
On page 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot,
That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land,
that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Ushmor tzidkeinu, uvoenu, lechaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Baruch atah
continue our Amidah silently with the words on the page or the words of our own hearts, or both, through page 63. And when you're ready, you may be seated. on a relatively warm January day in 2019, I went on a field trip with a group of rabbinical and cantorial students to plant olive trees in the small Palestinian village of Arakiz in the West Bank. The trip was organized by Truah, an organization of rabbis and cantors working for human rights, and we were going to plant trees for Tu B'Shvat and in a place where local Jewish settlers frequently harassed their Palestinian neighbors. It was a lovely day, and we closed our trip drinking tea with our Palestinian hosts and hearing about the exorbitant price of the water they needed to have delivered, while the technically illegal Jewish settler outpost right next door had government-provided running water. A week and a half later, probably the settlers from the outpost next door uprooted our trees during the night. So soon we were back, planting olive trees in the West Bank, this time in a different village, since the residents of Arakiz didn't want to provoke more violence. We worked alongside members of Combatants for Peace, a nonviolent movement of Israelis and Palestinians who used to be involved in the cycle of violence. And this time, we included on each tree a little note containing the words of the medieval Jewish scholar Rabbi Moses Maimonides that said, "One may not destroy fruit trees." As far as I know, the notes worked. We didn't have to go back. But it pained me to know that my fellow Jews were intentionally harming their Palestinian neighbors. It pained me to have put words of Torah on trees to keep them safe. And it pained me to see how the vision of a vibrant Jewish homeland could be twisted into a reason to harass Palestinians who dared cultivate the land in their own village. It pained me to see how a group of Jews could so hyper-focus on their own vision of Jewish interests that they lost sight of others' humanity. Arakiz lies about a third of the way on the road between Hebron, where Abraham lived for most of this week's parasha, and the purported site of Sodom, one of the cities God destroys in this parasha. Many of us, I think, have at least a cursory familiarity with the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. God tells Abraham that the city is so evil that there's no choice but to destroy it. Abraham argues with God, pleading that if 40, 50, 40, 30, 20, even 10 righteous people should be found in the city, that it not be destroyed for the sake of those few righteous. We're left in suspense. Will there be 10 righteous people? Will God destroy the city? If so, will God save Lot, Abraham's nephew who lives there, who Abraham, interestingly, did not bring up in the conversation? And what sin, we ask, what sin have they done? What sin could be so serious as to warrant total destruction? Then, the Torah brings us into the middle of the action, where two of God's messengers have arrived in Sodom disguised as visitors to the city. Abraham's nephew Lot meets them at the gates of the city and offers his home as lodging. They demur, but at his insistence, they agree to accept his hospitality. After they eat a feast with their hosts, all the people of Sodom surround the house and demand that Lot offer his guests to the mob so that they can sexually assault them. Lot goes outside and faces the mob on his own, and in order to protect his guests, offers his daughters to the mob instead. At this point, the people of Sodom become enraged, and they move toward the door of Lot's house in attack. But the messengers of God, the guests themselves, swoop in to bring Lot inside and shut the door to protect him. We can see that the moral outrage of Sodom is multi-layered. But given that when God tells Abraham about God's plans, God uses the word sin in the singular, Jewish and Christian interpreters across the centuries have sought to narrow it down to one paradigmatic sin. The interpretation we might be the most familiar with from popular Christianity is that, and that's made its mark on the English language, is that the sin of Sodom was homosexuality. This interpretation zeroes in on the male mob's demand to assault the male visitors and the contrast with Lot, who offers his daughters instead. But feminist commentators would argue that Lot is later punished for his willingness to give his daughters to the mob instead, and that the key issue here is sexual violence, not consensual homosexuality. So if the sin isn't, quote, sodomy, what is it? Many have argued that it's inhospitality. When Lot, a resident alien in the city of Sodom, offers hospitality to his guests, the people of the city turn on both him and his guests and violently attack him. In slight contrast, the prophet Ezekiel declares only this was the sin of Sodom: arrogance. She and her daughters had plenty of bread and untroubled tranquility, yet she did not support the poor and the needy. But while I do think that inhospitality and greed must be part of the picture, neither they nor the sexual violence tell the whole story of Sodom's sin. The Israeli feminist and biblical commentator and novelist Yochi Brandis draws our attention to the exact moment that Lot offers his daughters to the mob in place of his guests. When Lot refuses to give in to the exact violent demands of the people of Sodom, they shout, "This foreigner came to live here, and already he acts the ruler? What we will do worse to you than we would to them." The key moment in Brandis' reading is when the people of Sodom are willing to turn to violence upon their foreign neighbor when he advocates against their particular evils. She calls Sodom a chevrat resha, a society of wickedness, which she describes as a society in which the intensity of in-group solidarity erases the possibility of solidarity with people outside the community. Sodom, she says, turned violently against Lot when he stopped showing unquestioning solidarity to the violent demands of his neighbors in Sodom and defended his visitors from outside the city. The story of Lot is a painful text. It's painful because it leaves us morally confused and unsure whether anyone is the hero. Painful because it asks us to identify with people whose actions, like offering daughters to a violent mob, disgust and terrify us. Painful because it makes us consider if humans have changed, can change. Painful because we know that thousands of years later, our societies continue to do the same thing. And I can't help but hear an echo of Brandis' understanding of Sodom when I pay attention to the electoral politics here and in Israel. Sodom's ultimate sin of caring more to defend and support people who agree with us than people who do not, of valuing the lives of those most like us far and above the lives of those who are different from us, it stings us by calling our attention to where Israeli and American society have gone wrong in ways we don't know how to fix. In the Israeli election last week, almost 11% of Israeli voters supported a joint list of far-right parties, including Otzma Yehudit, the ideological descendant of an earlier party that Israel itself banned for its extremism, and the US State Department had characterized as a foreign terrorist organization. The leader of Otzma Yehudit, whose name is Itamar Ben-Gvir, had in his living room a portrait of Baruch Goldstein, the American-born Israeli radical who massacred 29 Palestinian Muslims in 1994 in his living room. This Israeli election inspired even the center-right American columnist Thomas L. Friedman to write an op-ed called "The Israel We Knew Is Gone." Almost 11% of Israelis voted for a party that included Itamar Ben-Gvir and his ideology. And another 23% voted for Netanyahu's party, which was poised to enter coalition with them, with full knowledge of that. That's painful. It's painful to know that there are Jews across the ocean who, in the name of the religion and culture we share, advocate for hatred and violence against those who are different from them, against Palestinian Arabs in Israel proper and in the West Bank. It's painful in the way that it was painful to hear that our trees in Iraqis had been uprooted, in the way that it's painful to know that those we strive to see as just like us, who share our Torah and our tradition, our moral and ethical heritage, espouse values that are so not like ours. It's painful to see our fellow Jews do the sin of the inhabitants of Sodom and value other Jews, and especially other Jews who think like them, so far and above the lives of every other human creature created in the image of God. It was painful on another field trip to the West Bank to see that the grave of that very Baruch Goldstein who massacred Muslim worshippers functioned as a pilgrimage site for Jewish extremists in a public park in a Jewish settlement near Abraham's home of Hebron. But nevertheless, I live in hope that the Israel we know is not gone. I live in hope from the Israelis I know from when I lived there, whose Facebook post after the Israeli election read quite a bit like my campus's College Democrats email communication did on November 9th, 2016. I live in hope from the Israelis who fought and won a discrimination lawsuit when my friend was denied service in a Jerusalem pizza restaurant for being gay. I live in hope from groups like Combatants for Peace who seek to end the cycle of violence, from my former teachers who organize dialogue groups, from the schools that help educate Jewish and Arab children together to help them come to understand and value each other. I live in hope, and I hope you'll accept the invitation to live there with me. But hope is not the same thing as naivete. And we should not be naive about polarization and xenophobia here or in Israel. And I am not going to pretend that I know how to fix it. But I do know two things. I know that naming pain helps us heal, and it helps us move forward. And I know that we in our own lives can strive to avoid the sin of Sodom. We can have solidarity with those who are like us and those who are not like us. We can value the lives of those who think like us and those who don't. And we can keep putting in the work every day to be and to create a society of goodness, not a society of wickedness. And when the mob is closing around our fellows like the mob closed around Lot, we can be the messengers of God, opening the door for them, opening our hearts to them, and bringing them to safety. May our actions be in accordance with God's will. Shabbat Shalom.
Tach libi b'toratecha. Open my heart to your Torah, that I may pursue your mitzvot.
now that I've remembered that I am doing the announcements tonight, I have some announcements. First of all, as always, feel free to check your This Week at AMT emails for the links to any programs I'm about to name that are available on Zoom. And we have a lot of things coming up. So our bereavement group is meeting on Wednesday, November 16th at 6:30 p.m. We are accepting donations for making Christmas dinners with Elijah's Promise. We're cooking for about 300, and we need either frozen turkeys or money for frozen turkeys, which can be given directly to the temple, and you can call or come in. Wishing Wall 2022 is now live, and it's in the temple, and we'll offer an online option through Walmart. So if you go downstairs, at the door that you come in from the parking lot, that door, there's a wall, and you can take slips of paper out of the wall for instructions on how to fulfill our opportunity to give hundreds of gifts every year to kids in New Brunswick and Middlesex County who wouldn't be able to receive gifts otherwise. Also coming up is the Schrager Memorial Lecture with our guest speaker, Dr. Dov Waxman, on Sunday, November 20th at 10:30 a.m. Dr. Waxman is the author of Trouble in the Tribe, and you can join us at the temple or on YouTube. And on Saturday, December 3rd, there are 3 important events. In the morning, there is a rabbinic forum, and then at 6, and that'll be at 10:45. And then at 6 o'clock that evening, there is the 80 Pasta Dinner, which is an important fundraiser for our youth group. And following that will be an Ohave Tarbut concert with Feliza and Or Zohar at 8 p.m., and they're amazing, so I really recommend it. All of these programs are amazing. I really recommend all of them.
The Yihiu L'Ratzon that you heard tonight, right after Tefillah, was of a piece by Or Zohar.
And if you love that, it's more like that. And if you didn't love that, they have lots of other music that's a little bit different. I don't know. I want to thank our choir and, as always, Dave Schlossberg for uplifting us in song. It is a real joy for me to get to sing a little bit with you. And at the conclusion of our service, I invite you to join us for Kiddush and Motzi and Oneg in Littman Hall. I should have ended that sentence like it was the end of a sentence. That was the end of my sentence. I think that's everything. There's probably more. It's in your programs. It's in the email. And even as we join together to share in the joy of Shabbat, we know that there are those in our community and among us who are in need of healing, of body and mind and spirit. O God of healing, in our hearts we name all those dealing with illness and pain and join our prayers with theirs as we pray for their courage and strength, for wisdom for those trusted with their care, and may your love and ours give added hope to them and to their families. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim refuat hanefesh u'refuat haguf hashta v'agala u'vizman kariv v'nomar.
Amen.
May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those in need of healing. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen.
Sheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel veLeah Hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Sheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov Rivka, Rachel ולאה, הוא יברך וירפא את החולים. אל נא רפא נא אל נא רפא נא אל נא רפא נא אל נא מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב שרה רבקה רחל ולאה הוא יברך וירפא את החולים.
We continue on page 282 and rise in body or spirit for Aleinu L'Shabeach.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל הבונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
On page 287, may we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד.
It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. At this time, we recall with sadness those whom death has recently taken from us, whose families are observing Shloshim, We remember Pearl Rosenberg Lipton, wife of Alan of blessed memory, mother of Susan and Joanne and Carol and Carol of blessed memory and David of blessed memory, grandmother of Marissa, Jillian, Adam, Seema, Molly, Michelle, Julie, and Sophia, great-grandmother of Jacob and Jaya, Kaya and Teddy, Chloe and Brooke, Madeline, and Cohen. And we also remember Alan David Nacht, husband of Rose Brecker Nacht of blessed memory, father of Arthur and Susan and Barbara, father-in-law of Kenneth and David, grandfather of Jeffrey, Mark, Adam and Amy, and great-grandfather of Shayna and Benjamin. We also recall tonight those whom we lost at this time in years past, whose names appear in our service booklet and are inscribed forever in our hearts and throughout our building. If saying Kaddish at home, please share the names of your loved ones aloud or in the chat so that we may lift their names up with you. And if you're here with us in person, please share their names as my eyes meet yours.
Esther Herman, Martin Fisherman,
Elizabeth Falk,
Joel Goldberg, and Evelyn and Amos Burkell.
Zichronam livracha, may all their memories be for a blessing. I invite all the mourners, if able, to rise from Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agalal v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'elam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace and comfort and strength to all who mourn and all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen.
We close our service tonight on page 321 with the singing of Adon Olam as we rise. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem kol Yetzir Nivra, Li'et נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא.
והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה.
אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. בידו אבקיד רוחי, בעת אישן ואירה, ואם רוחי גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא. אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, אזי מלך שמו, אזי מלך שמו נקרא.
May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Shabbat Shalom.
But I could have taken my lighter away. Yeah, I'm sorry. Just let us know. I wanted to talk to Deb. Yes. Hi. I did Guys, you walk out, be really careful. Okay. And I know way higher than it should be. I tried to. I'll register. Anita's okay, so it said something weird and I didn't know what to do.
That's
Weird to me, at least.
Yeah, no, it's, it's, a lot of people aren't registering, so we're happy to do it for them.
Yeah, I'd step over, it's actually, it's very